With a franchise like Star Wars, it is very common for multiple actors to play the same role. And of course, a lot of this is because many characters are behind masks, or in the case of Jabba the Hutt here, inside of a giant rubber puppet. In fact, it took no less than 6 actors to portray the original Jabba in Return of the Jedi, controlling things like his arms, his eyes, even an actor smoking a cigar to have the hookah smoke coming out. Well, Darth Vader is very similar. I mean, there wasn't somebody inside of him smoking a cigar, but there were many, many actors who made up Darth Vader's screen performance. And I'm not even counting things like, Jake Lloyd or Hayden Christensen who played young Darth Vader. I'm talking specifically, Vader from episode 4, 5, and 6 when he wore the mask. And when you're dealing with who is inside the mask, there's still multiple actors, some more well-known than others. As an example, most of the time inside the suit, you had tall actor David Prowse, who was big enough to fill out the suit and actually thought he was going to be doing the voice for Darth Vader as well.
Start tearing this ship apart piece by piece until you find those tapes. Find the passengers of this vessel. I want them alive!
But it's known to many that the iconic James Earl Jones wound up redubbing all of Vader's lines.
You must avenge my death, Kimba. I mean, Simba. Luke, I am your father. This is CNN.
But the number of actors that were going to make up Vader's screen ensemble was not yet complete. You still also had the man who played Anakin when the mask was finally removed in Return of the Jedi, which originally was played by Sebastian Shaw, who was then replaced by Hayden Christensen in the special editions. But I do have to say the Sebastian Shaw action figures that were released both in the vintage era and in, I guess what you could call the neo-modern era, even though this figure is like over 20 years old at this point, I really like them. In fact, I specifically treasure this one that came with a book sold at Barnes & Noble and other bookstores. It's a 12-inch or close to a 13-inch figure with cloth, cape, and I just absolutely love this figure. It's probably one of my top 10 toys of all time because this was the Anakin Skywalker I knew as a kid. And to me, this is what Anakin Skywalker looked like. No one else. So I love this toy. But beyond being on set in the suit, as David Prowse was, and Sebastian Shaw lending his head to the unmasking of Vader, as well as James Earl Jones' legendary performance as the voice, what about when Vader had to do stunts? It's common to get stunt doubles for this type of work.
You idiots! These are not them! You've captured their stunt doubles!
And this, of course, is in no way limited to Star Wars. Most major actors don't do their own stunts, maybe Tom Cruise is the exception, and often a stunt double will be hired to do the fighting, to do the jumping, to do the slashing, and for Darth Vader, that was Bob Anderson. He played Vader in all of the movies, in all of the dueling scenes, and all of the jumping. Anytime Vader had to do something besides, sit there and choke someone or walk back and forth, if he was wielding a lightsaber, it was Bob Anderson. And Bob Anderson is legendary because he was the stunt double and or trained some of the biggest names in Hollywood history, going all the way back to Errol Flynn in the 1930s, and even up to present time, training Aragorn in Lord of the Rings to be King of Middle-earth, as well as James Bond to help save the world. He's one of the most renowned stunt doubles of all time. I mean, most of us only know him from One of Our Dinosaurs is Missing, but he did a lot of other great films too. All right, so what does all of this have to do with The Mandalorian? Well, obviously there are more than one actor who's playing The Mandalorian, especially because of all of the stunts and shooting and jumping and rescuing of Baby Yoda, Grogu, that Mando has to do. And if you Google who plays Mando, Pedro Pascal comes up, much as multiple actors come up for Darth Vader. Now, when his mask comes off, obviously that's Pedro. We recognize him, and, spoiler alert, the mask comes off. I think that it's okay to say that at this point. The video has been out for quite a while. And, there's some really great emotional scenes that occur when he takes his mask off. And while the Prince of Dorne is a fantastic actor and very well suited to the role, he's not really the Mandalorian as much as we often sort of think he is. So who is it that's under the mask? Who is playing the Mandalorian throughout most of the footage that we see when he's not taking his mask off or not speaking? And, this isn't hidden knowledge. It's easily found on the internet and, hidden in different websites. But let me kind of take you through it, because it's quite an interesting story that goes beyond just having a stunt double, which obviously Mando has. So if you've seen some behind-the-scenes footage, you have probably seen multiple actors' faces wearing the Beskar and pre-Beskar armor, saying, well, wait a minute, that's not Pedro Pascal. Who is that guy? Well, this guy here is Lateef Crowder. So Lateef is Mandalorian's stunt double. Obviously, almost any actor or actress is going to have a stunt double for fighting scenes. And Lateef is one of the best stunt doubles in the industry. He does tons of work for all sort of films because, well, he's amazingly talented at fighting and jumping, and he can do this and he can do that, things that I couldn't even attempt to do, and this, and so that's what makes him a great stuntman. He can basically perform all of the fighting that Mando needs to do. All right, so that kind of covers the guy on the right there, but what's with the guy on the left? Who is that, and why is he wearing the Mandalorian armor? Well,
okay, people, let's have a round of applause for the real comptroller.
Yup, kind of the true Mandalorian is this gentleman, Brendan Wayne. Well, if you don't recognize him here, maybe you recognize him here, or at least you recognize the man on his left who shares that name, Wayne. He is the grandson of John Wayne, the absolute iconic, famous Hollywood actor who was mostly known for a lot of his cowboy and western roles. Well, that definitely carries forward in their blood, and he has played quite a few cowboys, such as in Cowboys and Aliens and other movies, and he in Hollywood is sort of known as not a stunt double, but a cowboy double. What he brings to properties is he has been trained by his grandfather, John Wayne, to be able to walk like a cowboy, talk like a cowboy, do all of the cowboy things, to have that certain movement, the way cowboys walk and, hold their head high and sway with their arms and legs. There is a very noticeable difference between just regular walking and cowboy walking. So while Pedro Pascal has been on the set quite a lot, he's not always in the costume. And with Mandalorian being fundamentally a sort of samurai western in outer space, there is a lot of, I guess, call it cowboyness needed in Mandalorian's movement. And this could be everything from the way he does quick draws and flipping his gun around to just strolling through the streets and having that, kind of suave cowboy walk. That is not necessarily easy to do, and he is an expert at doing this. Which is why most of the time, in a vast majority of the footage, it is actually Brendan in the suit. So this publicity still, which was used for season 1 to promote the show, this is actually Brendan Wayne in the suit. This is not Pedro Pascal. And this was actually the image used on the Vintage Series action figure. So it's interesting that this shot is not a shot of the actor that a lot of us assume is the Mandalorian, but it's rather his cowboy double, if you will, as opposed to stunt double, which he also has one of those, obviously. So whenever you're seeing, Mando flipping a gun around in a draw or walking through the street, if he doesn't have his helmet off, there's a very good chance you're looking at footage of Brendan, not Pedro. Now, obviously, when the mask comes off, or all of the voice work, much like James Earl Jones did Darth Vader, that's clearly Pedro Pascal. But beyond that, you're really looking at the talent of John Wayne's grandson portraying the Mandalorian. So obviously there are action figures with removable helmets, and for Darth Vader, that's Sebastian Shaw underneath, or sometimes Hayden Christensen in the newer figures. But when it comes to Mandalorian in his armor, yep, you're looking at a real cowboy, or at least a real cowboy actor in that suit. And that is what gives Mandalorian so much of his life and so much of the realism that makes the show so great. It's a combination of a lot of very talented folks, and Brandon Wayne is someone who should be credited for a lot of the success of Mandalorian. It's a great show, and a lot of that is because he's a space cowboy. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please do subscribe and share it with others. It helps tell YouTube to keep sharing it. That's what all it is, sharing fun toy, sci-fi, pop culture information with others. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments section.